Greetings. Welcome to Paris ISD's summer reading program. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how the program works. So by now you should have already received your 10 books, 5 fiction, 5 nonfiction. Plus you also, at the high school level, you probably also received another 5 books that were labeled Literary Element Pack or something like that. Between Mrs. Henry and I, we will be putting out videos for 5 books each. I am doing 3 fiction and 2 nonfiction, and Mrs. Henry is doing 5, and she'll talk about hers, when she makes her videos. So anyway, and one of mine will actually come out of that Literary Elements pack, I believe, but the other ones will come out of that original 10 pack. So I wanted to talk just real briefly about the things that you received in your package. And in your package, you would have received your books, of course, but also a journal that looked like this, and also several activity cards that look like these, yellow and whatnot. For each book, we'll talk about, specifically, what they go over and everything. This one is your reading journal, and here is where you're going to record certain things. On the back here, you have a reading log, and that's where you want to write down all of the books that you read, the 10 books that you read during the program. And here, we have some directions here. And once again, when it comes to the specific books, I'll talk about how to work with this on the specific book. But you have pages that's like this. On the top, they'll say fiction or nonfiction. And this page you can use for any of the 10 books that, regardless of whether they're fiction or nonfiction. On the next page, you have one that said ready, set, text. And that one says fiction. That means that specific activity needs to be done with one of your fiction books. And throughout this whole booklet, there are different activities. And once again, they're labeled for fiction. And then like this page is labeled for nonfiction. And we'll talk about using these for that specific book, through the videos. So I just wanted to give you, just a basic going over of the program. And you want to use this reading journal as well as look at the activities that you have here on this page too as well. So without further ado, let's get back to the book. Greetings, everybody. So this week's book is called Tarnished Are the Stars. It is written by Rosiee Thor, and it's been a really cool book. I have not finished it yet, but so far, because I'm almost done with it, I'm not quite there. But so far, it's been a really interesting little novel. So if we were going to look on the back of it, we have a little blurb here. It says, a secret beats inside Anna's chest, but her mechanical heart isn't all she's hiding. Anna is a technician, an outlaw who provides legal medical technology to the sick and injured. Her disregard for the commissioner's tyrannical laws has left Anna with a warrant for her arrest. Nathaniel, her newest patient, has secrets of his own. He's the commissioner's son, and he's determined to prove his worth by capturing the elusive technician. Their game of cat and mouse takes an abrupt turn when Eliza, a skilled assassin and spy, arrives. Her mission is to learn whatever secrets the commissioner is hiding. But the more she discovers and the closer she and Anna become, the more she questions where her true allegiances lie. When these uneasy allies uncover the most dangerous secret of all, they must come together despite their differences and put an end to a deadly epidemic before the commissioner ends them first. So that's the basic storyline. There's a little bit more to it than just that. So it's really kind of cool. Basically, this novel is what we call a dystopian novel. A dystopian novel is is basically a fictional community or society that is undesirable or frightening, and that's according to Wikipedia. Um, Now, I'll say that typically, whenever you have a dystopian novel, um, you basically have a society that is trying to create the perfect society. Um, but usually something goes horribly, horribly wrong when they try to do that. You might have read The Giver in junior high, um, and they tried to create this perfect society, but there was like one person that the true story was handed down to, um, and that was what started The Giver off, because he uh, this person, he could already see things that other people couldn't see, and so yeah. But anyway, that's a dystopia. That's a dystopian novel, in a nutshell. Um, that does kind of beg the question: how is Tarnished Are the Stars? How is that a dystopian novel? Well, we have a society that is trying to um, create a new Earth. Basically, it's called Earth adjacent, and because Earth has been destroyed through technology. Um, because of their technology. So, they create this Earth adjacent, which is another planet basically, and they have terraformed that planet. Um, and there are people on Earth adjacent, but there are still, people who are in the tower as well. And the tower is basically a satellite, or a space station, where the queen lives and other people live, and I guess you could say high society live. Whereas the people that are on Earth adjacent are not that well to do, I guess you would say. Um, or at least that's what it seems anyway. In the meantime, they have outlawed technology in Earth adjacent. There are a couple of little things about that, because when they say no technology, what they are referring to is actually no technology that um, predates the Industrial Revolution, which is like in the late 1800s. They don't talk about too much about the Industrial Revolution, but that's when the Industrial Revolution happened. So that's kind of curious to me about that. We'll talk some more about that later, because I am kind of wanting to give you some of my thoughts, and I'll get to that. I'll get to that point in a minute. But here are some of my thoughts on the characters. We meet Anna. She is the technician, we know about, and basically we meet her because at the very beginning, she and her grandfather Thatcher are operating on a boy named Roman, and he is getting the same type of heart that she has. This is a heart that's made from a clock, interestingly, and basically, what it comes down to is when they talk about the epidemic, this epidemic is called tarnish. And basically, it affects people's hearts, and it makes their hearts, stop working properly. So, um, they do these surgeries, and it's kind of interesting because what they're doing is, it kind of reminds me of the whole theme of steampunk, where you have a pre-industrial technology, but it's not as high technology as what we know, but yet it's kind of, um, I guess in a way it's simplistic, but in a way not really, because they are taking these clocks, they're making them into, where they can beat as a heart, and then transplanting them into patients who get this tarnish, and their hearts, can no longer support them. So that's kind of an interesting kind of, take on this. And that's what makes her become an outlaw, basically, is because she's known as a technician. She's one of these people who have helped to, she's not really a designer as much as she, performs these surgeries and whatnot. The designer of this is actually Thatcher. We find out later. But anyway, I don't want to go into it too much because I don't want to give away too much of the plot. I'm just kind of giving my thoughts on this. Um, then another character there is Oliver Fremont. He is the commissioner of Earth Adjacent, or AKA the settlement. Um, and in anyway, so I'm kind of like meshing the characters, kind of together with the setting. Anna and Thatcher, they live in a place called Meccan. Basically, it's kind of short for mechanic. So anyway, it's on the outskirts of the settlement. Um, and it's a place that nobody knows about it, except for the people that live there. And basically, the people that live there are basically the rebellious. They are the ones that are rebelling against the idea of using, pre-industrial technology to help them along their way. At any rate, the settlement is where the people who are obeying the laws and all that kind of stuff are living. That's it's another term for Earth adjacent. Oliver Fremont is the commissioner of said place, and he lives there with his son Nathaniel as well. Basically, the commissioner is kind of like a governor, I guess you could say. Nathaniel is his son, and it's not really so much of a matter of election as much as who becomes the ruler, as much as it has to do with who's who. In other words, you inherit this, from your former parent, from your parent, I guess you could say. Just like the commissioner Oliver, he has actually kind of seems to have inherited his place from the queen, which is another character, and the queen lives on the tower. She's wanting to come to the settlement, or Earth adjacent. Anyway, Eliza is the next character, and Eliza is she's working for the queen. She's considered the eyes of the queen, so anything that happens, she goes and reports it back to the queen. And this makes her a spy. She is betrothed. In other words, she is set to marry Nathaniel. But yes, she's a spy. And anyway, I mean, the plot kind of thickens from there. Oliver is the queen's son, like I said. But anyway, the tower is that space station where the queen lives. Eliza has been sent to spy on the commissioner as well as Nathaniel. And it goes a little bit further goes a little bit deeper than that. And we could see this with the conflicts, Nathaniel versus his father, because Nathaniel, his father sees him as being not ready to take over things yet. Nathaniel is trying to prove himself, and he kind of like vows, he's going to bring in the technician, and this is how he meets Anna. And so anyway, that's kind of like sums up the idea of Nathaniel versus his father. And then we also have Anna versus Thatcher. It's a kind of interesting relationship between them. Thatcher, who is trying to help Anna overcome some of her fears that she has had doing some surgeries, while performing surgeries, and and she's just not wanting to push herself in that direction. So we do have a little bit of that going on between Anna versus Thatcher, and stuff. Anna's internal conflicts, which kind of plays into her fears with Thatcher. Nathaniel versus Eliza, because we find out some things about Nathaniel. We also find out some things about Anna, and we also find out some things about Eliza. And we end up with, and I don't want to spoil anything, but let's just put it this way, Eliza and Anna get along much better than Eliza and Nathaniel do. Eliza really doesn't want to marry Nathaniel, and Nathaniel does not really want to marry Eliza. And like I said, without trying to give you a spoiler, I'll just leave it at that. Uh, there are also certain social constructs versus medical technology that seems to be a running theme in this book. Especially considering, what are some of the attitudes concerning technology, and especially medical technology. It has been outlawed in the settlement, as I mentioned. Now, there are some things that do kind of like give us some, make us question certain things there, um, with that plot, because it does. People in the settlement, whenever the commissioner wants to talk to the queen, and whenever they're having these meetings with with their committees and whatnot, running the settlement, it's kind of, they have holograms, they have some major technology that they use for that. I mean, come on, a space station, for crying out loud. um, so that did kind of make me scratch my head. Why are they focusing on the technology of the pre-industrial time, if presumably it is the high tech that destroyed the earth? Um, there are certain things that were kind of, you know, that kind of made me scratch my head. Certain aspects, and even if you do a search of these on of this book online, you will find some reviews on Goodreads, and even they, a lot of the reviewers will even bring this up. Like, yeah, it kind of, the setting leaves you with more questions than you have answers for, and the book doesn't go into specifically how the earth was destroyed. It just says the earth was destroyed, and they went via the tower and they built earth adjacent and terraform it, and so they have technology to terraform, no less, as well as pretty much harness the power of a different planet, to make it livable. But yet technology destroyed. Anyway, it just kind of like makes you go around. It creates a paradox. Okay. Um, Something else that is kind of developed in this story, that I see as certain themes, that really actually delve into some things that are interesting questions. Um, Besides just technology, it does make you question the idea of medical technology. When we talk about medical technology, we're talking about like devices, artificial organs, transplantation of organs, certain procedures, all those kinds of things, that we see today. It does kind of make you wonder, um, especially considering the fact that, since the kinds of things that Thatcher and Anna do, the kind of medicine that they practice is outlawed. So it does kind of make you question, well, what are the ethics concerning medicine, and what's known as biotechnology, bioengineering, biomechanics. I did some research on this, and some major questions come to the fore, especially as they deal with, well, who gets to have access to this technology. Then there's a moral question. Do we as humans, should we mess with Mother Nature, so to speak? There are all kinds of different questions that are brought up with the idea of medical technology. There are other certain themes that are kind of interesting, like the idea of maybe perhaps it's saying that matters of the heart are an artificial construct. And I'm looking in terms of symbolism here, literary elements and things like that. Um, so that was a theme that I kind of questioned. What about, the whole thing that the hearts are made out of a clock? What does that say about time? Hmm. Also, because of the interaction between Anna and Nathaniel and Eliza, that does kind of, is this a theme of society forcing you to choose things before you are ready to make that choice? So, it did bring up some interesting thoughts. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the book. I really enjoyed it so far. As I've read it, like I said, I haven't finished it. Um, I say almost finished. I guess you could say I'm 2/3 of the way done with it. I will be finishing the book because it is very interesting. It's just that the deadline for this video came up before I could finish the book. So anyway, I just wanted to throw some thoughts your way. Maybe throw some questions out there. With your thoughts. With in terms of my thoughts. Some things to think about. Um, I also suggest, don't just take my word for what I'm talking about with the question of ethics and bioengineering and biomechanics and things like that, and medical technology and whatnot. I actually found quite a few interesting things to look at, to read on Gale, so don't forget the library databases if you want to look more into that question. So anyway, Tarnished Are the Stars. Give it a read. It's really interesting. It is fiction. It is a novel. It is dystopian. So yeah, and I love dystopian novels. So I'm thoroughly enjoying this. So anyway, have